Hello, welcome back once again, Roach here, and I am standing in my little makeshift tree farm because as you can see I've finally updated to the next version. And this is really going to actually have a lot to do with what I do in the future with the area over there. So let's go ahead and get as much spruce as I can. And then once we get done with that, we'll talk about the plan. Maybe even lay some things out to hopefully make this look half decent. And after just a little bit of resource gathering, this is what we've got. And I think this will be just a good start to where we need to be. But really, before I do anything too much, I'd like to kind of work out a little bit of the pathing. Because I want this to be a forest that kind of bleeds up into the village on the hill. So I would like, here it's going to be a little bit easier now, to go ahead and make this just some path blocks. To try to make a little bit of an organic shape here away from the village and kind of pseudo connecting to what will later be the future site of the actual city. Now, I don't necessarily want this pathway to make a lot of sense. It's just a little scenic path. It's going to go through a forest. It's just kind of here to make everything make sense, to draw it all together. So let's take a look and see. I mean, that will work. So let's go ahead and finish up the pathing here, and then we'll get started on the next part. And I believe this is the general pathing that I want. Now that I'm all the way up here looking at it, I think I should probably add one more this way, just to bring it around the back edge. But I think this is generally the idea here. And I think the next part of this whole project is going to be laying out where I want trees and how dense that I want all of these trees to be packed. I think I don't really know how densely I want them packed, but I'm going to go ahead and add this path right here, and then as I start marking out where the trees are going to be, I think we will talk about really what the plan is here. So I think this is going to be, see if I can't get back up to where I was before. I think this is going to be the full placement of pathing. That does seem a lot better. It's just enough pathing to make my life miserable, not enough to be terrible. I mean, maybe even one more going out, but this is, we're splitting hairs, and I think that'll be enough for what I need. So now I just need to place all of my trees. I believe I want it to thin out over on this hill, but I think over here I actually want the tree placement to be pretty dense. I don't want there to be a ton of space throughout, and I obviously am not going to be able to get done with all of these trees right now. I just don't have enough wood, don't have enough time, don't want to burn myself out again. But I think this is just kind of the general idea of what we want here. Just a line of trees kind of lining my pathway here. And then as we go, these trees, they aren't going to be super wide, so it's not a huge deal if they're kind of close to each other, and if their leaves are, or if their leaves are kind of intertangled. In fact, it'd be nice to have kind of roots poking up through the pathing here. But yeah, I think this is just, again, generally what we want. We'll have to clear out all of these. Well, not all, because we will be using bone meal around here pretty soon. But I think this should give me a good general idea as to whether or not this is something that is doable. And yeah, I think that will work. So I'm just going to continue, placing stumps, basically. And then after that, that's not all that we're going to do with the area before we start building trees. I'd like to almost get everything built from the ground up, so that the vision can be seen before I put in all of the effort. Or maybe I'm doing it the hard way here, but nonetheless, let's go ahead and finish a large amount of the stump placing, and then we'll see what we can do from there. Now, I know this seems like a lot of trees, and I actually want it to be even more than this. I just kind of ran out of wood here. I'd like for this to really all be filled in. And I can't really take any shortcuts, because when you're in the village, especially on top here, let's go ahead and just kind of sit down right here. You are going to see everything. So unfortunately, these pathways will have to be eventually brought all the way. This will all have to be filled in with trees. And hopefully I can do this without losing too much motivation. But I imagine I'm about to be spending a whole lot of time in this area here. But as I was testing out different designs for these trees, I also was testing out how to make the roots come out, and I found that this green grass just doesn't work. I mean, really it works okay, but all of the pictures of spruce forests that I saw were almost washed out, and that was kind of what made them look cool. So we're kind of going to be doing what I did up there, trying to get rid of the savanna look. I'm going to be using this pale this pale moss block, and basically replacing all of this grass with this pale stuff, so that we get the correct ambiance. And along with that, I did again update to 0.5, which I believe means I should have fireflies somewhere. I'll have to figure out where they are. I'm sure there's a mod or something that'll help me do that. But that's going to be the goal here. I just need to make the ambiance right. Make it look right. And I think that's going to add a whole lot to this area. So let's go ahead and start with the pale moss blockification of this whole spot. And after that, I think we're going to end up getting rid of all of this grass. So let's go ahead and have a time lapse of doing just that. And this is the result of almost a full hour of, a lot of bone meal and a lot of hitting grass. There's still a little bit of spots over here. There's definitely spots over there that need to be done. But I think this is a really good start. From here, I just have to start building some trees. Seeing exactly... I've got a general idea as far as exactly how I want this done. but I need to start building it to see how densely packed I need to make all of these trees to make it look half decent. And the tricky part here is I don't just need it to look decent when you're walking through. I actually also need it to look decent from up above here. So I need the tops of the trees, if I can even get up here, I need the tops of the trees to look good. And if I can manage that, especially on this large scale of a project, I'm going to count that as a win. But I think in order to get a lot of this moss block, I always think using bone meal is the way to go. But every time I do it, I forget how long it takes me to punch out all of the grass. Because if you just take this as an example, if you bone meal this, these pieces here underneath won't become pale moss block. Why don't I show you exactly how this works over here on the edge? So we'll just use this spot here, right? So if you do this, you notice all of the ones that already, or at least a lot of them, that already did have a piece, already had grass on top, didn't get moss block grown underneath. And no matter what I do, it will never grow. So it has to be knocked down, then grown, then knocked down again. It is, honestly, it's a pain. I wish I knew of a better way to do it. If you do, please let me know. But I just can't figure out any other way to go. But I think this is going to be basically where we stop on that sort of terraforming project. And I'm going to start building the trees. So the true question here is, how tall do I want these to be? Also, do I even want this to be regular spruce log, or do I want to take an axe to it? The way I did it in my testing is I only used stripped versions of this, but I think having the darker down below, kind of sort of gradually going up to lighter, having it staggered a little bit, is going to make it look just a little bit better. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. I think I want everything down here to be regular. And the reason for that is actually quite simple. So I say it's simple because I want everything down there to basically be covered by leaves. And so the idea here is hopefully that by doing this, it almost makes it seem like there's light shining through above. Now, it's not just going to be a 4x4 block all the way up, though I'm half tempted, honestly. But it is going to be this wide, generally speaking. So as I am building it up, what's going to be happening is I'm slowly at the bottom, there's going to be almost dead branches, almost like they were the initial branches that this tree grew. But as the trees grew around it, as it grew taller, it began to block out the light. And so leaves weren't able to grow. Let's go ahead and sleep and see what this looks like from this area. I do think that will work. I want this to be not quite twice as tall, but a fair bit taller. So let's go ahead and do that and see if we can get something looking half decent. Now, after making a couple of mistakes, mostly accidentally making almost all of my spruce logs into fences, We are doing pretty good here. I know it doesn't look great, but I think once we start wrapping around some leaves, this should look a whole lot better. In fact, I actually haven't taken a look at it from over here quite yet. Okay, I think that will work. Maybe this needs to go out a little bit farther, but I think with the leaves should naturally just do that. Now, unfortunately, I haven't actually gathered any leaves, so I need to go ahead and put Silk Touch on this, and then we'll try and see about finishing up one of these trees here. And this is exactly, I think, mostly what I want. It looks like that backside is still a little bit bare, but let's once again take a look from up above and see what it looks like. I am terrible at this, but okay, I think this will work. It doesn't look fantastic, but I believe as I start to fill it in, it's going to be just enough busyness to make this whole thing work. And now, as far as how it looks from down here, I actually think this is where it kind of shines. It's meant to be, this will be meant to be walked through. It needs to be almost towering over the path here. Whoops. Falling in a hole. But, as you'll notice, I didn't just leave it, this 4x4 block. It goes in, out. There's some dead branches out here. Let's see. Let's add a little bit more over here. Perhaps just some buttons. But I also added some roots. I wanted roots to go out to connect in with other ones. So these are all going to be connected. Perhaps I'll end up putting puddles in here as well. And then, of course, I wanted the roots to also extend out into the pathway. Basically, just so there's a little bit of variance as far as walking goes. You can see the effect of trees growing through paths, or even of paths, I guess, going through the roots of trees. Now, of course, this one tree took me quite a long time, but I think after I get that one down, I just need to do a little bit of grinding, get enough wood, and then after I do that, I will basically stick frame this entire thing. Make all of the trees as tall as I want them to be. The middle ones are going to be taller than this. So the ones right around this intersection here are probably going to be the tallest in the forest. Basically this whole section here. And the reasoning for that is just because I want it to dip up. I want it to be convex rather than concave. And that makes sense from a, from a nature standpoint. The trees on the outside of the forest typically have been growing, are younger. So they've been growing for less amount of time, aren't quite as tall. But those trees on the outskirts also tend to have a little bit more leaves, especially down below. So as we get into these bigger ones, I think it will actually open up down below. Maybe a little bit. It won't open up a ton. But I hope that's something that will be able to happen. But I think this is just about all that I have time for today. I'd hate to burn myself out again. So, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time. Bye.